It's the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Blondin. This is episode 49, the final episode of season 1. So far, it's been quite a journey here on the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast. September 8th is when we posted our first episode 1. And I can tell you that we've come a long way here with many different ways of looking at bringing you the podcast, talking about sports betting, evolving, and we're still evolving. But if we look at this is the learning year for the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast as we jump into the new season in the NFL. Wow, it's like back to school, new school year. We're going to learn a lot, and we're going to focus on the beginning of the betting season being week 1 of the NFL and journeying through the year of rest of 2023, heading into 2024 until we get back around to NFL season just right again. So amazing things, a lot to learn. I'd like to thank everybody who has also participated, from the lady upstairs to Austin from Ajax to Johnny Charts and to H-Dilla, all the guests that came on to talk about different sports betting, sports in general, thoughts, opinions, and there's a lot more to come. I'm telling you that right now. We're going to shake things up. We're going to look at this differently. We're going to approach it differently. How we're going to do that, I don't know just yet, but we're going to try new things. But with the NFL season coming along, we got a lot to talk about. And what we're going to do here is we're probably going to do episode 1 this weekend, Labor Day weekend, with Austin from Ajax. We're looking to schedule some mutual time to run through every matchup in week 1 of the NFL. It's coming. Big matchups, and we're going to be successful. Maybe talk about some of the learnings from last year that we're going to bring into this year. It's going to be a big deal. Big deal. So stick with us, share the episodes, pass it along. Join us on Twitter at Overrated EXPER2. That's Overrated EXPER2. On Instagram at Overrated Experience. Facebook Overrated Experience. Get on board. Get part of the community. And let's do it. Let's make some money. Let's have some fun. Let's talk some trash. Let's do everything that you would do sports betting on any given Sunday. All right. So as we come into episode 49, what we're going to do is focus on, and I don't want to miss out on this weekend's soccer action. And so we'll get into the EPL and a couple other picks from some of the other leagues across Europe. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about not going to go into depth starting for the Thursday nighter, Kansas City and Detroit. I'm going to stick with some props before I wait to episode 1 of season 2 and get into it with Austin from Ajax. But let's get going here on the props for the Detroit Lion, Kansas City Chiefs. The spread is still 6.5, total 54.5 on FanDuel. Now again, the best idea, if you're going to bet football, is to have multiple sports books to keep an eye on which odds are in your favor, and obviously you would take those odds. But don't limit yourself to one sports book. We're going to look at FanDuel in this episode and the episode going forward, but try to have multiple sports books as you approach the NFL season next week. Oh, and also, we won't talk about any college picks. This week, NCAA football has begun. The spreads, the week 1 and the, technically week 2, I guess. The week 2 in the NCAA football right now is just out of line matchups. The only, there's not on Saturday, there's not one ranked versus ranked matchup. A lot of high spreads. I'm going to leave it for a weekend to see if anything sticks out. But last night I took a little dabble on Florida and Utah. I took the over. It was a one-sided affair. Utah just smacked Florida around. Florida's in trouble. Utah just owned them. Florida could not move the ball. But it's exciting to have NCAA football back. Just games everywhere. Love it. So that being said, let's dive into what some of the props look like going into the NFL matchup on Thursday, the first matchup between Detroit and the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions. Okay, so as we get into this, I mentioned FanDuel is the sports book we're going to look at. I'm going to do a combination between FanDuel and Bet365. FanDuel because that's the book I use. Bet365, honestly, if you're a props player and want to get within the game, they kick the shit out of everybody else. Let's be honest with you. Bet365, we don't see eye to eye on certain things on deposit regulations, etc., and information they require from me to keep an account going. I just don't like their approach, and they're not necessarily the to me, the nicest folks when it comes to dealing with if you have an issue and or trying to sort something out. FanDuel, to my experience, kicks their ass on that. But let's not kid each other. Bet365 offers the variety of bets that you're going to want in your NFL season. So I would suggest, if you're on good terms with Bet365, use them if you like props, team props, player props, every prop you can imagine, and or different approaches to the game betting. They are the way to go. But let's kick it off under FanDuel. So what you got to look at, I believe, in a game like this, when you're looking at team props and player props, what kind of game do you imagine? What kind of game do you imagine this is going to be? Detroit, a 6.5-point underdog coming into Kansas City. Mahomes versus Goff. The Lions are the favorites to win the division, and they've had a lot of time over the summer to get hype. Dan Campbell's team, hype. They're the up-and-coming. They're going to surpass Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers is out of the division. So Detroit's that next team. I'm going to say pump the brakes here. Pump the goddamn brakes. The Detroit Lions have done fuck all. They have done fuck all. Write that down, quote it. Fuck all. They have been disappointments even last year. They've had spurts of positivity. They've had games where they've looked like a powerhouse on offense, but defensively they still lack. And they made a playoff run near the end there, but they didn't make the playoffs. So I think the mantle being passed to them and the hype being passed to them, I think, is a little overdone. And then at 6.5 points, you have Detroit coming into Kansas City. The Kansas City Chiefs, guess who they are? They're the Super Bowl champions. Guess who they have a quarterback? Patrick Mahomes. They're going to light up the Detroit Lions. This is not a week 4, a Sunday afternoon, where Kansas City's just come off a big division matchup against Detroit big division matchup against Denver or Las Vegas or LA. They're coming into week 1 of the season where typically the Super Bowl champion come to play. And I can't imagine that Patrick Mahomes is not going to light the Lions up. So I envision that the Lions do hang in this game for a while, maybe even a halftime, maybe even to the third quarter. But eventually the Chiefs pull away based on a big play negatively by the Lions and or some outstanding play. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is throwing with his feet now and not his right hand, the left hand, or maybe he's headbutting something. I don't know, but he's the best in the game right now. Let's not kid each other. So this hype, pump the brakes, Motown. Come on. So going into this game, if I envision the game happening that way, on FanDuel, Patrick Mahomes' passing yards are 307.5 yards. I like the over. I like Mahomes to light it up, especially if Detroit's keeping it close. The Chiefs are going to keep moving the ball. And if there's a quarterback that needs over 300 yards in the NFL, I tend to go with Patrick Mahomes. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. So I like the over at 307.5 on Mahomes. And I'm just going. There's no particular order in this list I'm going down here. So please, I might be all over the place, but bear with me. Detroit's Amon St. Brown. Last year, there was money to be made there. His receiving total was always low. And he always has 1 or 2 explosive plays. Jared Goff is looking for him. It's not like Kansas City has a tight-knit defense. I mean, their pass rush is going to be impacted by Chris Jones and his holdout because it looks like leading up to Thursday, he'll still be out of Chiefs camp. And obviously giving time for Goff to take a shot downfield. And it only takes 1 or 2 to get to St. Brown. So his 77.5 at minus 114, I'll take the over. It was making money last year, and I'll stick with it this year. He's a game breaker. Also, something that, I'll sprinkle a little bit of money on this. I think there's value. I talked about Detroit maybe jumping out, looking good at the beginning of the game. You tell me that Detroit can't get to 10 points before Kansas City does. And so a plus 148, I'll take the race to 10, and I'll take the Detroit Lions, and I'll sprinkle a few loonies and toonies on there and see what happens at plus 148. Nice return. And if not, you move on. So those are the props that I do like for FanDuel. Now, if you really, again, I'm going to hype up Bet365, even though we don't see eye to eye. They have a lot of props that the others do not, or at least FanDuel does not. And a few of them I'm going to share with you right now. Jared Goff. I don't know if you remember back when he was with the Rams. And this is before the Rams moved to SoFi Stadium and they played at the LA Coliseum and they played the Kansas City Chiefs. In fact, I think a couple of years ago on a Monday night, it was supposed to be played in Mexico, and the field was so bad that they had to move the game back to LA. And I can't remember, it was like 55, 51, and Mahomes and Goff were just lighting it up, like just back and forth and touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Two young teams at the time. Obviously, Mahomes has moved on to be Super Bowl champion multiple times. Jared Goff had a great, I'm going to say a good season with the Lions last year, but fell out with the Rams, and they meet up again here on Monday night or Thursday night. But I do like value here. I do expect a Jared Goff interception late, if not early, but I believe a clutch situation where the Lions are being forced to, throw on 3rd and 12 or 4th and 6, and he's got to force the ball. So Jared Goff plus 110 to throw at least one interception. I think there's a true value there. Here's a weird one, and only something you'd find on Bet365. Harrison Buckner, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, he has a point total as a kicker, 7.5. So if he kicks a field goal, obviously it's 3 points. If he kicks an extra point, it's obviously 1 point. So the total he has is 7.5 points. And you got to think to yourself, how many field goals are the Chiefs really going to hit here? And maybe one. How many times are they going to go for 2 versus 1? And how many times is he going to be on the field? So at plus 105, under 7.5 points for Harrison Buckner, I like it. So mark that down, write it down, and put it in the bank. And also, something, I just talked about Jared Goff throwing an interception at plus 110. Bet365 also has longest pass completion. And Jared Goff, I talked about St. Brown as a total receiving yards. And I said he's going to throw a few bombs down the field. And one of them is going to be to St. Brown. So I think the 36.5 over minus 115 for the longest pass completion for Jared Goff. I think there's true value there. Put it in the bank. Jared freaking Goff. Okay. So what do you think of that? That's the first live, in-season, real NFL picks coming from the show on the last episode of the Season 1 of the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast. If you don't like it, you do like it, or you have any thoughts, like I said, I gave the Overrated Experience Twitter handle or X handle, whatever you want to call it, Overrated EXPR2. Get a shout out there. Follow us on Instagram and also on Facebook at Overrated Experience. Now, we move on to footy. Footy, we're talking about British football here. We're coming in and we're going to talk about goals and saves and we got corners. And we're going to talk about the amazing performance by this gentleman right here when it came to last week's total. So last week's total is this. So when we came into last week, and I'm going to lose the accent right now, so if you want it back, shout out, please. So we came in, great weekend for us. We got things right. That means we're a genius today. Probably failed this week, but hey, that's what happens in the world of sports betting. You're on top of the world, and then you're not. So last week, we took Chelsea on the Friday game against Luton Town. Luton Town keeps playing on Fridays. I don't know what the story on that is, but they do. So I'm going to recap because we're successful. We weren't successful. I would not recap. Just kidding. Over 2.5 goals? Check. Chelsea win? Check. Chelsea 6 or more shots on target? Check. Payout. Saturday morning, Arsenal Fulham. Fulham jumped out quickly. Over 2.5? Check. And over 8.5 corners? Check. 100 pays 120. There's the I got the win here, but here's the surprise in this game. It didn't play out. The result played out exactly the way I wanted it, but the result was not what I seen coming. Brighton hosting West Ham. Now, West Ham really flopped in 2022-23 and came into the season. I didn't really think with high hopes because they were on the verge of relegation last year before they pulled out late in the season. So I thought, West Ham has had a good start. No question about it. But when they came into Brighton, who's been on fire, I thought Brighton would be the ones winning 3-1 here. But no, West Ham controlled this matchup. So I took Brighton to have six shots on target. And guess what? Absolutely 6 shots on target and more. And I'll get to why that's important later. Match shots, 25. Did it. Shots on target in general, way over. So that $100 paid out $93.61. Great pickup. Again, sometimes you fall into a win. Brighton was the team I thought would be on the result side of things. I didn't have the result side of thing in the bet. Everything else worked out and got paid out. That's what counts. All right, if I looked at Newcastle and Liverpool, this was the big matchup on Sunday. and I was a little scary on the over, but and Liverpool got a red card when Newcastle, I can't believe they're already up 1-0, or Newcastle scored after the red card, but Newcastle held a 1-0 lead for quite a while until Liverpool, down to 10 men, did tie it up and pull out a late winner, and they skyrocketed over the corners. So over 2.5, over 8.5, 100 to pay 112. That was in my pocket. So there you go. That was last week's recap, and it was very successful. So you need to listen to what's going on next, and that's this weekend's action. Heading into the soccer weekend, and I don't have a German accent because we're going to give a Bundesliga pick too. So episode 49 here, we're going to talk about this week's action. Before we do, quickly, some news and notes. The Champions League draw did happen this Friday. And just some news and notes from that draw and looking who's in each bucket. So if you don't know the Champions League, it's an in-season tournament of the best-on-best leagues across Europe. Teams qualify from various positions they finished in the table to qualify for the very lucrative Champions League, which happens as the season progresses. And the Champions League, this is going to start, I think, September 18th, the first match. Actually, September 19th and 20th. The Tuesday and Wednesday is the match day one for the group play. And it's amazing because as the domestic league is going on, you have the best of the best on tournament. Top two teams in divisions of four make it to the knockout stages. And let's just quickly scan what we think, and maybe going next week when we look at the odds before September 18th of who we think is going to come out and some of the futures on this. So Group A, Bayern Munich, Manchester United, Copenhagen, Galatasaray, I can't even say it. It's the Turkish team. They're always in here. Bayern Munich, Manchester United are the top two here. I don't see much happening there. Those two should come out. But Manchester United, as a fan, I'm wearing the jersey right now. They can lay an egg sometimes, but I got to hope that they're going to come out of into the knockout stage. Group B, Sevilla, Arsenal, Eindhoven, and Lens out of France. So Sevilla and Arsenal should come out of there. PSV Eindhoven could be a sneak pick, and Sevilla might be in danger. I don't see Arsenal falling back on this one, so Arsenal should win this division. That's good for them. Group C, Napoli, Real Madrid, SC Braga, Union Berlin. Real Madrid should blow teams out. They don't. They win. That's what counts. They're so loaded with young talent and then sprinkle on the veteran talent. But Real Madrid, Napoli should come out of this pretty easy. Group D, Benfica, Inter Milan, Red Bull, Salzburg, Real Sociedad. Inter Milan, I don't know if they're the team like they were that made the Champions League final. They got to get out of this group. Benfica, Portuguese team, quality team, should get out of there as well. I don't see anybody but those two teams getting out. Feyenoord out of the Netherlands, Atletico Madrid, Lazio and Celtic. Interesting, but I do think Madrid and Lazio should be the two teams to get out of there. Group F, Paris Saint-Germain, Mbappe looks to still be there, and obviously Neymar's gone and Messi's gone. They are still the class of the France, league, and they got Borussia Dortmund, AC Milan, and Newcastle. This is probably the group of death. This is the top team, and there's a lot of people online talking about Newcastle, like saying, "Oh no, man, I got these three other teams." Fuck that. Newcastle's the team that they should be scared about because that's the team that you're supposed to have at the bottom of the table. It's supposed to be that weak team. I think Newcastle United match up fine with each of these teams and are a real threat to get out of here. So I will be sprinkling money on Newcastle to make the knockout stage, even though they're in the tough Group F. Group G, Man City, defending champions. Maybe, I'm going to say still the best club team in the world. They have Leipzig out of Germany, Cervena Zvezda out of Serbia, and Young Boys out of Switzerland. Man City should roll with this. Leipzig should also qualify. Shouldn't be too much of a problem, I wouldn't think. Group H, Barcelona, Porto, Donetsk out of Ukraine, Royal Antwerp out of Belgium. Got to think Barcelona's going to take this one. Barcelona's they got lucky here. If they were in another group, they'd be in trouble. They're a solid team, but they have a mix of young talent and veteran talent, and we'll see where it goes as the time goes on. But they're not what they were before. They're still a threat, I guess. Should win this division, but don't be surprised if Porto takes the number one spot, but Barcelona still to qualify. So there you have it. Those are the groups A to H, and that's my quick glance. But it's exciting times in this world of sports. Soccer action. If you're not on board with that betting, get involved. It's especially in the Eastern Seaboard here. These games happen earlier, afternoon. Weekends are amazing. You mix in college football, then a Sunday, NFL, NHL, NBA. Get you through the winter. Man, get on board with it. Get your head out of your ass and start watching those the soccer action. So, enough said. Going into weekend action, what do we got on the board here? Well, I can tell you what we have on the board is another Luton game. Luton Town and West Ham. And if you heard me in a previous episode, Luton Town, their stadium, because I think this might be the first home game they have. They take on West Ham at 3 o'clock today. And Luton plays in a small stadium that has a unique setup where they have houses almost built into the stadium, almost like attached surrounding the stadium. And it's a unique kind of old school and makes you love the fact that a team like Luton Town has the opportunity to reach the highest peak of European football and make and qualify. Are they going to get crushed? Goddamn right they're going to get crushed. You look at their lineup. It's not like they're full of up-and-coming young stars and they've purchased a number of impactful players. This team, I think, is going to get a nice memory of being in the Premier League, but they're going to get their ass handed to them many of weekend. Trust me, it's going to happen. And they're going to be down in League One before you know it. West Ham comes in. Like I said, I don't trust West Ham in the long term, but they are rolling right now. So the same game parlay I do like here is over 1.5 goals. I think West Ham at least scores 2, if not more, and runs away with this. But let's stick with 2. And West Ham with a straight up win, $100 takes on 104 profit. So that's my Friday pick. As we head into Saturday, the 7:30 game, I'm not going to say this matchup, Sheffield United hosting Everton, is something that you may set the alarm clock for. But I'll tell you what, set your bet for an over 10.5 corners. I think this is going to be a corner fest. And 10.5 corners is minus 102. So $100 will win you $98. I can't trust that these teams are going to score. Everton is probably going to be at the bottom of the table. I don't see them being... they may be. They're going to be fighting relegation all year. Let's just say that Everton's not what they were in the past, and they will be on the bubble. But I think Sheffield United, who started out very slow, is also obviously on their way out and having a cup of coffee back in the Premiership. But over 10.5 corners, I think that's your safe play. I wouldn't try anything with goals because who knows if there will be any goals. There may, but don't count on it. Deep breathe and go into the Man City 10 a.m. game hosting Fulham. Fulham's a solid team, but they're not Man City. Man City is, the powerhouse of Europe right now until somebody says otherwise. So I'm going to look at a bet similar to last week when Man City visited Sheffield United. They're going to control play. I'm going to say 2.5 goals, and it could be 3-0, 3-1. But I think Man City is going to be the reason why I'm taking the over 3.5. And these are same game parlay, by the way. Over 7.5 corners, you'll probably see 7 corners Man City, 1 corner Fulham, if not 8 corners Man City, 0 corners Fulham, because they're going to have control 80% of the time. 8 or more shots on target. Again, I believe you're going to see 4 or 5 shots on target by halftime from Man City, and then Fulham will sprinkle, maybe sneak a goal in like Sheffield United did, have maybe 1 or 2 shots on target. And but it should be a Man City win. $100, $106, and that's a recap. Over 2.5, over 7.5 corners, 8 or more shots on target. That's money in your pocket. Bam! Brighton, Newcastle. This is the game of the week, in my opinion, as I enjoy these teams like Brighton and Newcastle. Brighton fighting here. Newcastle coming off a big loss at home against West Ham, but they host Newcastle. Newcastle has, when they face the big boys, they haven't stepped up. So they stepped up where they've kept in the game, but they haven't taken that next leap. And I think against Brighton, we're going to see a great matchup here. Now, here's something to note with Brighton. In a loss, all right, last week against West Ham, Brighton still had 26 shots themselves, 10 shots on target themselves, and 17 corners in a loss, 3-1. What's that tell you? They flood. They keep coming. Attack. They're not playing a possession game. They're coming, quick pass, get into the tough areas, possible penalties, etc. So win or lose, I love Brighton and Newcastle. I love them to light up the board on shots. So 10 shots on target. That seems high, but like I said, Brighton puts the ball on net. So my same game parlay will be 10 shots on target and over 8.5 corners. I do think there'll be a lot of action close to the goals, and there'll be a lot of corners in this game. So just those two bets: 10 shots on target, over 8.5. $100 gets you $129. So that's the matchup you book time tomorrow at 12:30 to watch on a Labor Day weekend. Sunday, good matchup. I mean, watch this one. You got Arsenal hosting Man U, and it's hard to know what kind of game you're going to get here. It could be, I'm going to assume it's going to be at least 3 goals in this one. So my same game parlay here is going to be over 2.5 goals, over 8.5 corners. Man U gets involved in a lot of corners. I think the threat here is it going to be a 1-1 game? 2.5 is the part that makes me sweat. But 2.5 over 8.5 corners, $100 will get you $120. Now, stepping outside the EPL, you got a lot of other European action, and I'm talking top European action. Johnny Charts is going to get in. If you got Johnny Charts on your contact list, he's going to send you picks that are absolutely leagues you might not even hear of, or divisions about first goals over, or first half over goals. And so I'm going to stick to other Euro top divisions, but Johnny Charts might throw in a few picks down the road that for teams you may not have heard of and couldn't even find on the map. So German League, the game I like, Bayern Leverkusen is SV Darmstadt. Team that came up this year. Leverkusen is on fire right now. They're scoring goals. They're jumping out of the gate fast, and I like to jump on this momentum. So the Bundesliga, the majority of their games start at 9:30 a.m. So make sure you note that it's half hour before the Premier League majority kicks off, usually at 10 o'clock. So Leverkusen. So I'm going to put the same game parlay here. Over 2.5 goals, and I think they're going to be the ones scoring 3 goals. Leverkusen to win, and over 7.5 corners. And I forgot to put the money payout, but I think it was plus money somewhere. I think it was 100, but that's a game to look out for. I didn't want to add in a Bayern Munich one. It's tough to find a same game parlay that makes sense because they should crush teams. But keep an eye on Harry Kane player props for goals and shots on target. They're going to feed him, and they're going to make him the new Lewandowski. Really focus on him, enhance what he does, and he scores goals. He's not Messi. He's not that playmaker. You know what I mean? He's going to get his assists here and there, but his focal point is to put the ball in the net. And they're going to find him in easy scenarios where a sniper like him is going to be able to bury and close opportunities. So that's the EPL picks, and that's my one German play. I thought I had another one here, so 1 second. And it was a La Liga. And if you don't know La Liga, that is Spain's top division. And that is, we're going to look at the Real Madrid game here. And Saturday at 10:15, I think I got that right, Real Madrid and Getafe. And Real Madrid, like I said, man, if you look at their lineup, they have potentially some of the top, early 20s stars in football. They're one of the few teams in the world that is like the vultures and grab, these up and coming players. Kylian Mbappe for PSG will be there at some point. So he pencil him in next year, or at least the next transfer window potentially. But tomorrow they host Getafe. I'm probably screwing that up. I like Real Madrid to win this game. Over 1.5 goals and over 7.5 corners. $100 will win you $136. With the talent Real Madrid has, I stated earlier, they should beat the living shit out of this team at home. They'll squeak it out. They'll control play and win. And I'm hoping it's not like 1-0 like last week. They will control. They missed a penalty last week as well. Just frustrating when you needed 2 goals from Real Madrid, but they won. But I'm going to say they get the job done this weekend. So that's my plays of the week. And just the news that came across the wire. I don't have a wire. I'm just checking my phone. Is that it looks like Liverpool has rejected Sadio Mane's bid to go to Saudi Arabia for $150 million. They've rejected it. And interesting how that will play out. You know, it looked like he wanted to go, and you know, for the money they're going to offer him, why wouldn't you want to go if he would have made the move? But good for Liverpool if they said no. If you're serious about competing with Man City, if you're serious about the Premiership, it's a no-brainer. You have to keep a talent like Mo Salah. He's a difference maker. You have to keep him if you want to keep him with Man City. I know it's a lucrative offer, but you did the right thing when it came to your fans. If you had the opportunity to retain him, you had to do it. And plus, if you would have received that, and if you would have made that sale, you probably wanted to do that earlier in the transfer window so you could use those funds on other players. And right now, it's too late in the transfer window. In fact, it's shut down. I think it's closed now, or it's soon to be closed. It would have been too late to find a player or players that could replace what Mo Salah can do to make sure that you're still in the mix when it comes to the end of the Premier League season. So that being said, this podcast is over. The pleasure, of course, was all yours. I was just here to fulfill your entertainment. And we're going to be over and out. Have a nice day. Enjoy your weekend of betting. We'll talk to you again on Episode 1, Season 2, NFL Kickoff. Look for it very soon. Bye-bye.